Hey,
Hey,
how you
Mark,
doing, guys?
how are you?
Doing very well. Very, very glad to be here. It's good to see you again, even though it's all remotely nowadays.
Yes, happy that you could join us. I know these are crazy times. So we're happy to be able to bring a forum to people so we can all work together in this new environment that we're in. So first of all, I have a funny story. I don't know if you remember how I met you, but it was at National Trial Lawyers, ironically, Martin Luther King weekend, maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was so humbled by Mark because I don't know if you remember this, but I ran up and thought I knew you and gave you a big hug and said, "It's so nice to see you again."
I do recall
And
that.
you smiled and you nodded and you went with it. And yet later on, I realized it was because you were this public figure in the news. And I had no idea that you just weren't a lawyer that I had worked with in the past. And I was always appreciative of how you handled that. So,
Well, no, and I do remember that. And no, yeah, because part of it is, particularly because of some craziness that's happened, Zimmerman, and after that, you meet so many people. In mine, it was just, just tenfold that I didn't want to not remember or whatever. So the nicest thing was to just say hi back and good to
I
see you
really
again.
always, I was very embarrassed and very appreciative of that. And that was when we had first launched our company Momentum, and what a pivotal weekend to be there for. I don't know if you remember the celebrity that was there. We had, Martin Luther King's
Yes.
son attending, and Benjamin Crump was there. Was such a wonderful group of lawyers that, and congratulations, by the way, to you as well. I hear you're now the president of National Trial Lawyers.
Yes, and actually, I appreciate that. I just finished my year. It was up, a couple of months ago. It was great, both the year leading up to it, president-elect, and then president was just great. And now I'm sort of president emeritus, so I get to just do whatever work I want. So, yeah,
Okay.
great group of people and a great organization. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we've been happy to be involved with them as well. So our audience and who we speak to at Beyond the Bar, they're trial attorneys and people who work at law firms who are learning and wanting to get more educated about how to run their law firm as a business.
Yeah.
And I know that for you, we talk a lot about publicity and PR, and as a lawyer, getting out there to market yourself. You are somebody who is in the public light all the time, and yet running a very busy law practice. And so I just wanted to ask you for some tips to the attorneys about how they can run their law firm as a business and yet still get out and market and be in the public eye as well.
Sure. Well, one of the answers that I've sort of learned over the past decade or so is you have to surround yourself with people who are good at what they do. If you're a solo practitioner, the harsh reality is you can't do everything yourself. You'll try. So you'll try and be a great lawyer 10 hours a day. You'll try and be a great marketer 10 hours a day. You'll try and be a great business owner 10 hours a day. And pretty soon you're out of time. So what I've learned, 10, 15 years ago was not only getting good staff, which is utterly important, and getting more staff than you think you need because you'll always keep them busy, but also sort of partnering up with those people out there who know much better what they're doing than you do. And I'll give you one easy example. I can make believe that I know how to do good digital marketing, right? Or SEO or whatever that might be. Because, I just put my name out there on Facebook or Twitter or something like that. And lawyers, because we have an ego dysfunction that we believe we know how to do everything already. And that's one problem that lawyers have. But if you get past that and realize the harsh reality is we don't. And someone who is good at SEO, for the example, who knows how to get out there and get your name, your firm out there, do whatever to truly do what they are experts at doing, then what happens is you get to be good and better at what you do.
I just want to interrupt you real quick. Yeah. You have such a public name. Are you using an SEO person to help your law firm market itself?
Oh, absolutely. I have a number of different people who I work with who help me be as good as I can be, not just being a lawyer, but being out there. Because even though Yeah, I've given a blessing years ago with the Zimmerman case that really put my name out there. The reality is some of it that's out there, some people think are negative, some think are positive. But the other thing is you've got to keep it sort of top of mind, right? You got to still keep that awareness for the people who you're looking at for, new clients, which is the lifeblood of any firm. The only way you're going to do that is to make sure that you're still keeping it out there at the top of those clients or potential clients, the way they're looking at it, so that when they're finally looking for a lawyer, whether it's a car accident case or a criminal case or family law, whatever it might be, that you're the one that they think about.
So that's so interesting, because I think most attorneys out there running their businesses would say, oh, Mark O'Mara, he doesn't need any SEO. He's on CNN, for goodness sake. They're going to learn from this and say, if he needs this SEO person, I could definitely benefit from that person as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely. Because think about it, it's such a vibrant environment that we live in now. Just look at video and look at Facebook and look at social media. What we used to have, 15, 20 years ago, the news cycle was a day, right? Then it was like 8 hours. And now the news cycle in America is probably 15 to 20 minutes because everything just turns around so quickly. So if you look at it from that perspective, if you are not doing everything that you need to do to keep your name in the front of the public eye, almost constantly, I could easily rest on the laurels of, oh yeah, I have that famous name. Great, but I'm telling you, and this is from experience, that will not get those cases coming in the door and keep you as relevant as you should want to be.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, it's been, how long since you had the famous case, and you're still on CNN and you're still giving commentary, and we see you at conference and all over the place. So, and that's the juggle of how then do you practice law. So I love the fact that you said this about your team. And I feel the same way about running my business, that I couldn't do this if I didn't have the team that I do, and surrounding yourself by really good people. So I love that advice. So, on that note, I know that the case that you're famous for was highly publicized. And, I guess the recent cases, when we look at them, a lot of the attorneys have asked me to have you comment on the more recent cases. And how do you think that the defendants in the recent cases have any chance at a fair and impartial trial? And I want to look at it a little bit more, because your audience is the legal community, the legal points of it and what you can do to address that to all of us.
Right. Well, first of all, with the Zimmerman case itself, that's going back 7 or 8 years ago now. I mean, that not only did it polarize the country, but it really focused the country on problems that are inherent in the criminal justice system. And, I've been fighting for that for 30 years, because when you do criminal defense, you're representing people who are in the system who are having those biases and those implicit biases and prejudices visited upon them. So, we know that the criminal justice system, as is society as a whole, slanted against particularly young Black males. That's just an undeniable reality that we're dealing with. So now we, fast forward from the Zimmerman case, where, a lot of people, me included, thought, okay, at the very least, that case brought out of the shadows and into the forefront these biases. Now, the Zimmerman case was not sort of the poster child for the way some old white guy just killed a Black kid, the way some people have presented it. But nonetheless, it did present the issues that exist in the criminal justice system. It actually spawned Black Lives Matter as a movement. And you would think that 8 years ago that we would have learned more, quite honestly, that we would have kept it in the public eye. And I'll give you an example. If you look from any of the cases that happened since, from Freddie Gray, Eric Garner, Walter Scott, Tamir Rice, and dozens of others, we haven't learned, it seems, that as a society, we haven't learned that there are biases in the system and in society that we have to deal with. Use that as the context for what you asked, which is, now what are you going to do with the Ahmaud Arbery case, the Brooks case, and the Floyd case of the death of Mr. Lloyd? What do you do about that? I actually believe, and I know other people have said maybe now's the time. But we said that was the time with Eric Garner. We said that was the time with Tamir Rice. But it really seems like there has been, in fact, a sea change in the past several weeks, mainly because of the video of George. You look at that video and say, 8 minutes and 46 seconds of intentional killing. And it really seems as though we have just maybe finally taken that extra step of making it mainstream. And the hopes are that now that it is on everybody's consciousness, that we're actually going to do more about it.
And do you feel that maybe the pandemic and the environment that we're in, I've thought about this a lot, that there's more people now that were just home, that are unemployed, that are watching TV, that the protests and the things that have happened, it's like we're living a slower lifestyle. And it's made us slow down and really think about the civil justice system and what's going on. And do you think that factors into this at all?
I think it does. I mean, the social scientists might have their own insight on what it means, but I see it a couple of folds. One, certainly exactly what you said. People are available more to listen or to see, right? So like with me and with you, right. you work your every day, you're working 10, 12 hours, you don't really have enough, you catch the news on the way home. But now all of a sudden we have a much higher percentage of the population that literally is, hunkering down at home. Right. And they're turning on the TV. So in that sense, yes, I think that now that they have the opportunity to look, they are looking more. But there's something else about the pandemic that I think has some impact on it. And that is, our stress level is heightened. If you think about it, 10, 15, 20% higher stress. They say that a rising tide raises all ships, or whatever that is. Well, that's what's happening with our stress level, right? So now if you have that stress level, it's already heightened. And then you add to it what's happened to George Lloyd and Floyd and other cases like that, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. Now all of a sudden that stress lays on top of another level of stress, the pandemic. And I think that's what we're seeing the whitecaps of. I think that's why people are sitting going, I'm tired of the pandemic, but my God, I'm really tired of this. Right. And they then have time to respond, to tweet about it, to get on Facebook, to watch the news. And I think that's helping that tidal change we just talked about, of actually looking at it going, we got to figure this out. And now that you're actually taking a breath and having time to look at it, people are reacting.
Now, are you still handling, I think, obviously the case that was your famous case was you were on the defense side for George Zimmerman, but tell us what your practice looks like now for the attorneys out there who may have a case they want to send over to you. What are you specializing in?
Yeah, the local practice is still wrapped around criminal defense and some family law. I've got a couple of associates on either of that. That's sort of the local, but what my real heart is into right now is the civil rights cases. And those are the cases where normally law enforcement has caused some damage. I've got a case right now we're about to sue because my guy who had some slight mental health concerns was ignoring a cop. No danger, no threat, but he was going towards his car. The cops wanted him to stop. They didn't. They put like 13, 14 bullets into his car and paralyzed him. Totally unnecessary. We're going after them right now. As you know, I represented Matthew Ajibade, a Black 20-year-old college student that was brought into the Savannah County Jail, or Chatham County Jail, and beat and killed. Sam DuBose up in Cincinnati, 40-year-old, in his 40s, Black guy, stopped by a University of Cincinnati police officer, ended up shooting and killing him. Right now, we just got involved.
So your practice is really a national practice. So the attorneys that we have listening are all over the country. Yes. So that's nice to know that if they do have a case. Now, would you ever co-counsel with an attorney who's interested in, some of the attorneys may ask, how do I get involved in the civil rights cases? They're so high profile. Is there a way that I can, refer to Mark, but yet still co-counsel with him or learn from him?
Oh, absolutely. And that's what I do is normally people will call me, whether it's the families who reach out or other attorneys and say, I have this. It needs to get some traction, needs to get some attention, needs to get some expertise. So I've got a number of cases. Actually, I think every one of my cases right now on the national level, I have local counsel with, and either I've been brought in for them, or they brought me in one way or the other, or I've sort of negotiated with them. So absolutely, because these cases do take it's a recipe. You have to have a good case, you have to have liability, of course, but you also have to be able to get it out there in the public view, because
and that's where they can use your publicity, your whole MO and the CNN consultant, and you're on the news, and really get it publicized. I know Benjamin Crump, and he does a lot of that as well, where he's going to partner with somebody, and then he can come to the forefront and really get it to the news. Where I mean, it seems like a lot of these cases are now tried on the news. I mean, when you look at the video as a lawyer, you think, how is there ever, and this is the question I have, and I know a lot of the other attorneys do, how are you ever going to be impartial on a jury? And you walk in and see these, and is it possible for any of the police officers to have a fair trial when this video is circulating? And how would that even work?
It's difficult. If you think about it, with the way the country is polarized with the Zimmerman Trayvon Martin case, how do we ever pick a jury on that? You can pick a jury in most jurisdictions. You can get people who will probably come in without their minds made up. But I agree with you, it is much more difficult in the environment that we're in today to try and figure out how to do that right, how to do it in a way that's going to get a fair result. Because 20 years ago, 15 years ago, cops were given the default position. Almost anything they did was acquiesced to or was okay. And now I think the pendulum has swung back the other way, where we're looking at cops going, wait a minute, what's up with the chokehold? What's up with the taser? What's up with this?
What's so interesting? Yeah, sorry. I'm so sorry. I just remembered at that MLK conference, do you remember there was an entire panel on the body camera, right? And I mean, this was 5-6 years ago. The debate was there, and there's still jurisdictions that don't even have them. So
there are too many that don't have it. My opinion, and look, I represent a couple of cops right now. I think they're great people. I would not want to strap on a gun and a badge and maybe get killed when I go to work every day. I get that, but we are in a society now where body cameras cost $100, $200, less than a gun. If you're going to put a gun on, put on a body camera, because we know they haven't done everything I thought they would do, but we know they help. And we know if some cop knows he's got a body camera on, or she, then they're probably going to act a little bit better. And here's the other thing, it's impartial. They're going to show what they're reacting to as well. So body cameras should be mandatory throughout the country. It is absurd.
It protects the officer. Who wears it? I mean, that's their story, right? That's their version of the story. So, and I remember that was a big debate. We had the whole panel, and that was, a few years after you represented Zimmerman, and it was so topical then. And we were so, all the lawyers were so passionate about making the changes and doing something, and the news was there, and it just, and then it just fizzled into something else. And it's, it's just, we became complacent, which is unfortunate.
Mark, knowing what you know now, and everything that's been going on in the world, would you do it again? And what would you do differently?
Nothing. Yes and nothing. I mean, it's an easy answer. Would I do it again? For a couple of reasons. One, it's what I do. I mean, I do criminal defense work. That's part of what I do. So the idea of saying to me, well, would you represent him because it was highly publicized, or because it divided the nation, or whatever else? I will tell you, and it sounds a little bit egoist, the way that I looked at that case and the way I handle it, and the effort that I put into trying to be as even-handed as I could be, while still zealously representing George Zimmerman, because that's really my only task under the Constitution, I think we as a team, we had a lot of people helping, we as a team handled it as good as we could have. We respected all sides of the argument as best we could. So I would definitely have done it looking back, and I would not have changed very much at all, because I think the outcome could only have been worse if people, quite honestly, who are less sensitized to the social pressures that were at play, someone who is not quite aware of that, could have devastated the country a lot more than we did getting an acquittal.
Piggybacking off of that, when personally when you took on the case? How did it affect you personally and, you know, your family, because that is such a high profile, controversial case?
A lot more than I thought it was going to, because don't forget, when I first got involved in the case, it had regional attention, you know, local and regional, no national really. But then literally the day I got involved is when they indicted him or charged him, and things just blew up. I will never forget walking out of my little cottage office after I announced that I was representing him. There was no less than 75 or 100 reporters in this semicircle around my door, 12 or 15 satellite trucks. And for the 20 months that that case lasted, there was never less than 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 reporters at my office 10 hours a day. They would wait outside, they would come in the lobby. So it really changed my life completely. And it was a little frightening at times. We had about 2,500 what Homeland Security and the Sheriff's Office considered legitimate threats against me or the team, because, you know, that case really stoked the passions of people on all sides. You had the Second Amendment people who were sitting there going, yes, protect your right to have a gun. You had, of course, the Black community who saw yet another young Black male shot while he was unarmed. So there was a lot of that was happening, and it all sort of visited itself upon George Zimmerman, and therefore me, just by, you know, connection, and I represented him. So yeah, there was it was scary and some dangerous times there for a while, because you know, the passions were running so high.
But you would do it again, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, without question. Now,
Yeah.
let me. Now I have to be a lawyer. Would I take? Yeah, I would do it again, but I would hope that we are in a slightly different environment, that we would look at that. Because I've always said, look, if you want me to tell you a dozen of my clients for whom the focus of national attention should be on the injustices of the criminal justice system, I have a dozen, 2 dozen, 100. It's just that the facts of the George Zimmerman Trayvon Martin case did not support actively that type of real aggressive, obvious prejudices within the system. You know, the facts that showed out was George focused on him. Yes. Was he doing something wrong? Who knows? Did he call the cops? Yes. Was there a fight? Yes. Was George's head bounced off concrete? Yes. Did he shoot him once in the chest? Yes. Was he on top of him when he got shot? Yes. So, but there are so many more. Look at
that's
today. The Floyd case. There's no explanation for why that happened. Look at some of the Ahmaud Arbery case. Oh my God. That was
but I mean, so I guess I have a really good spin-off question from this. So if there's an attorney out there, and there is right now, who's sitting listening to this in their living room and saying, I have a case that tops all of those cases, and it's not getting, like you're saying, there's, you know, dozens of other clients who don't get that kind of attention. What does this attorney do to try to spark that attention? Or is it something that you think maybe shouldn't get, maybe the case is better served not getting public attention? I mean, what are your thoughts on the lawyer sitting out there who may have a case similar to some of these recent cases and doesn't know what to do with it? Do they go get the publicity, or do they keep it more on the down low? Well,
you know, it's really a complex question, because part of what, you know, because I train lawyers on how to work with the media, and on criminal defense lawyers, my first advice is don't go anywhere near the media.
Yeah, right.
Media does not help a criminal defense case ever, because you don't want light shined upon your case necessarily, because you're trying to work it through the system, trying to minimize damage to your client. And if you have a good defense, present it to the prosecutor subtly. Having said that, on the individual case, yes, it is better to stay away from the media and try and work your case through. But if the media has already visited itself upon you, then you have to know how to handle it. And more importantly, and this is one thing that Ben Crump does, you know, you might get justice on the individual case, staying out of the media or doing whatever you can to settle the case. But if you're looking to try and change the trajectory of the criminal justice system, you will not accomplish that focusing solely on the case. You have to focus on the societal problems and the systemic prejudices that exist in the criminal justice system. And the only way you get that done is by utilizing the media. And that's what Ben has been so good at.
Right. No, absolutely. I mean, do you have any other pointers for young lawyers out there who are with bigger firms? Many of them like to leave and start their own firm. And now obviously we're in this difficult, pandemic time when we don't know when we're going to get back to a normal way of working. Any advice for those young attorneys who want to venture out on their own and how to take some risk and have, you taken that kind of risk in your career? I know you had an interesting trajectory to get where you were.
Yeah. So yeah, a couple points. One, like I said earlier, make sure you get a good team. Spend the time, effort, and unfortunately the money to bring in good team members and to utilize those experts, again, across the marketing spectrum, every expert that you can. But as importantly, I do think that you need to be willing to take a bit of a chance on yourself. You have to put yourself out there. What you should not do, and this is a tough call when you're trying to keep the lights on, what you should not do is take every little case that you can get your hands on. This $1,000 fee for a DUI that should be $5,000, or this possession, or take this car accident case that you're going to put 100 hours in for $1,000 fee. Unfortunately, you have to be willing to trust your own future, because you're not going to get good getting sort of rote.
Right.
You've got to keep sharp. You got to keep that dynamic touch to you, because that's the only way you're actually going to get a name for yourself and really focus on what's good. If you look at some of the trajectories, a lot of the good lawyers, Mark Lanier is a great example, Mike Papantonio, there's literally hundreds of examples of lawyers who what they did was rely on their own gumption, their own abilities, and go out there and really go for the big cases. And, you're not going to be a Mark Lanier because you say you want to go sue J&J, but the idea of his focus and the reason why he's where he is now, because he had that same focus 25, 30 years ago.
And I think that's so key. And one thing when we talk, I go to these women caucus events and I speak to women on how to market themselves to get business. We talk about being passionate. So I tell them to find something that speaks to them, find a niche. Like with Leslie Kroger, she became, the president of the Florida Justice. She went and fought for, Tallahassee for kids to be in booster chairs. I mean, she's really followed her passion. We have attorneys who are, nurse lawyers and they take a medical field and they do med mal. Just figure out what it is that makes you passionate. And with you, obviously, you figured out that passion, and then I say you promote yourself. Sure. And it all falls into place. Because if you really are passionate about what you're doing, you figure out the niche and then you specialize in that, your business grows from there. And you have to, like what you said, believe in yourself, surround yourself with great people. And I mean, I think that's the recipe.
And here's my response to that. I don't think it's hard to find your passion. I think sometimes we cheat ourselves and go, well, I'd love to be a photographer. Well, let me tell you something. When I look at a case, I'll give you a really silly example. You say to me, vanilla ice cream, chocolate ice cream, or coffee ice cream. I'm immediate. I love coffee ice cream. That's who I am, right? So if you take that example and go out there and go, $1,000 DUI, 100 hours for a PIK. No, if you sit back and say, what really turns me on? What really makes me stay at the office late at night? What really do I really want to do? It's clear. It's not the clarity that people are missing with their passion. It's the decision to just go for it. Just get off your butt. And I don't mean physically, but get off your butt. Realize that's truly your passion. Realize that eventually it's going to pay off. And I don't just mean financially. I mean emotionally and psychologically. And just the way you look, when we're all said and done, we're going to look back in our lives and we're, walking around in a walker. You're going to remember the good days, the bad days, and no one's going to remember those 80% of the stuff that doesn't matter. Right. Get your passion, figure it out, go for it, and the joy will come with it.
And then most attorneys who are passionate about what they do and they're marketing it and they're in the public light, they usually have someone. So that, I always joke that we didn't go to law school to learn how to run a business, right? No one taught us in law school how to be in business. And yet we all have to go out there and figure it out. And what we see a lot of with successful firms is there's the marketing partner who's really good at, just getting the business, running the business. And then there's the attorney who's really good at litigating and trying cases and doing the lawyering. Do you have somebody in your law firm that takes care of a lot of the running the daily operations so that you can go be in the public light? And is that something you also see and think is important?
And Dominique, who is exactly that person for me. Right. She is the one who makes sure that our social media existence and our profiles are out there, that the website is doing what it's supposed to be doing. She is sort of the dowager, if you will, the person who looks at all of this and keeps things on track. Because if you've ever seen me type, for example, I can't type. And I should not be spending my time typing, right? Well, in the same sense, I am not as good at as Dominique is with what she does. I'm not as good as what Kelly does, and Susan, and Maureen, and Caitlin, and Bird. Everybody else here who has their precise role. And then just outside of that circle, the ones who actually work here, Chris and the people who do the video marketing for me, Mile Mark, who does some of the digital marketing, people like that, you and your company who helps with funding when I need it. All of that stuff is how you have now a cohesive, like every piece of the puzzle in place so that you know what it is. No, not just that you know what it is, you know that you can be as good as you can be with what you're good at.
Because you can trust that you go out and do this.
Yeah. Delegating, I think.
Just like I cannot set up a podcast. I'll tell you that much. I walked in and the thing fell on the ground. And so I get you on that one. I like to just walk in and have, all of the, I'm not the computer person. But yeah, I agree with you, in running a business as well and being an entrepreneur, that you've got to have that team around you to do what they're good at. Right. What I'd love to do, I'm going to end with Caitlin kind of on a last call, but what I'd love to do with you is if you're open to it, if you're willing to give a few shout outs, maybe we can send it out in another podcast to the different people who support you with your marketing, and give them some credit. I think that would be helpful to other lawyers who are looking like, who do we use for our website? Who do we use? So we'd appreciate that. I think we'll start some type of a venue to have all the attorneys put their best people on there so we can, share with others, and especially for the young lawyers and the lawyers who are starting out their business. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mark. Some of my mistakes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We have to do last call.
Yeah, we have to do last call. I do have one other question. I want you to get into justice reform. So I know that you had just started that, or you had started that, and I was reading that in your bio, and I think that'll be beneficial for people to hear. I know we didn't really touch on that too much. So if you can kind of explain that, and then we can end on last.
Yeah, the Justice Outreach Program is just, here's the thing. If you look at it from the criminal justice system, we spend billions of dollars on the criminal justice system, but we don't spend very much money trying to keep people out of the criminal justice system. So if we were to start with juveniles, those people, 8, 10, 12 years old who get into a little bit of trouble, maybe don't have a lot of family support, whatever it might be. If we can divert them out of the system early, and I don't mean just ignore them, but train them, help them, mentor them, coach them, then if we can keep 5, 10, 15, 20% out of the adult system, we have not only saved billions of dollars, but we've saved those kids' lives. So Justice Outreach Program is a way to try and get people of the community, coaches, pastors, that guy in the neighborhood who's just sort of the dean of the block. Those people who are involved in the community already, getting them to try and mentor with and help out these juveniles who are otherwise at risk, to try and give them a focus. Sort of like these community associations and things like that, let them play basketball after school so they stay out of trouble. It's a little bit like that, but a little bit more focused on those who get themselves into trouble to get them back out of it. So it's just a passion of mine because. Can
the audience donate to that? Is that something?
Donate or?
I am funding it right now. So, and if it gets if it gets going really well and I need money, I'll ask for it. Right now,
thank you. That's awesome.
So thanks for that.
Yeah.
Now, normally, if you know Momentum, we do shots at our CLEs. It's usually taking a shot. So next time we do a Zoom with you, Mark, we're going to get the bottle out. There you go. There you go. So that's actually what we should do for last call. We should tell the attorney to get their best bottle of something out and take a shot with us.
This is a gift. I don't drink in the office at all.
Okay. Most of our audience is doing shots with you right now anyway. So you've been national trial lawyers, you know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know who our clients are.
So last call, if you could be a rock star, which one would you be and why?
Wow. So this is really going to age me, but one of my favorite groups is always the Moody Blues, because not only was it good rock from way back in the 60s and 70s, but it also had a heart and a soul to it. The music, and if you listen to the lyrics, it was a lot more than just, hard rock. It really talked about a positive future, and it just had this sense to it. So I would want to be, I'd be up on stage with people like Justin Hayward playing guitar, because I did that for about 6 months, and trust me, I wasn't good at it. So yeah, if I was a rock star, I'd be a member of the Moody Blues. So there you have it.
Going on, yeah. So, okay, with quarantine and COVID, what are some new hobbies you've picked up? I mean, mine is gardening now and bike riding. I mean, like, which ones have you picked up?
When I was in 6th grade, I started with a camera club with one of the teachers. And I've always loved photography. And literally, I've actually had time, not a lot, but I've had time to get back to it a little bit. So I've been taking my camera out. I can show you some pictures, but I'm not going to. Camera out and actually just going back out and doing nature photography. There was a couple of baby ospreys that were growing over the past 2 months, and I've got some good shots of them. And just, photography. I loved it, and now I can actually spend a little bit more time doing that.
That's awesome.
It's really good. You got to have the balance, right? It's all about balance.
And I suck at balance. I just ask Jen how much I suck at balance, because here's the thing. We talked about passion a little while ago. I really love practicing law. It's not a job for me. I would don't say this out loud. I would do it if people didn't pay me. I mean, I really love this stuff. So it's not a passion. But the problem with your passions when you have a profession as a passion is, you're right, you have to balance it, because with your family and with your health and with that whole thing that they say, you don't want to have it on your tombstone that I worked more hours than anybody else. So you have to be a little bit careful of the balance with your passion, of keeping the fact that you need to have family and health as a balance as well, so that you can enjoy all of them.
Right. And now for me, we can kind of end on this too. I feel like because your home is where I work, you don't know when to shut it off. And now there's that blur between the home life and the work life. So for all of you attorneys out there, we've got Mark on here telling you to keep the balance. Let's all keep perspective, follow your passion, and just do what makes you happy. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, no, thank you very much. It's great to have time to chat.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Is there one thing you want to say before any shout outs or goodbyes before we leave?
Lovely wife, Jen, thanks very much. I have Timber here in the office with me. You should always have a dog in your office. You talk about balance. That will keep you balanced. But other than that, keep at it. Be good. Try and be as good as you can be. And go have fun with this practicing law. It is a lot. I worked at UPS in college. This is easier than UPS. So go have fun at it.
I like that.
All right. Thank you so much.
Good
to see you as always.
All right. Be well.
In person soon, Mark.